Okay guys, if you have a plunger that sticks out and won't come back in, or if the cup travels up to the product but nothing's happening and it's just not pulling the product into the cup, then the most common thing that goes wrong on these Royal RVV500s, and I've replaced more of this than anything else over the years, is just this plunger motor goes bad. It's really easy to replace, and if you own these RVV500s, you should always have 2 or 3 of these on hand, just because in like a high volume place, like I probably replace it every year here. So I'll bet you I've replaced this plunger 3 times in the last 3 years, and now it's out again, and so here I am doing it again. So the only thing you have to do is flip the cup over, take these 3 screws out. Okay, and you just grab the front and back of this thing and just shimmy it straight up and out. Because that big bar that's in there can screw things up. So just straight up and out. Set it down. Now, what we're gonna do is take these gears out real careful. All these gears will just fall off of this little rod if you're not super careful. So I'm just gonna take those gears out. I'm just gonna set them down right there. And you know, you don't even really have to take them out. I just like to be able to see this thing, just pull it straight back. I think what I've done in the past is when I'm pulling this out, if I bump those gears, then they just explode everywhere. And so now I just take them out and set them down. Pull out my plunger motor, which is literally 1 year old and is now bad again. And I'm going to just notice how it went in. Even though these are keyed, you can only plug it in one way. I just like to remember that the red wire was on the left. And I'm just gonna yank that out of there. I'm also gonna unplug power while I do this. I don't like plugging things in while power is running to it. I'll take this out. First thing I'm gonna do is just plug this back in. Right, so like I said, they'll only slide in one way, and once they're in, you know, it locks into place. So now I'm going to just carefully slide this guy back under all this jazz and sit him down. I guess he sits down like that. There we go. There's a little groove in the plastic down there, cut out like a cup, and it just sits right in there. I'm just going to take all these wires and carefully put them aside right there. I think that's out of the way there. They don't really get in the way. Okay, so now that's in there. I'm gonna just take my gears exactly how they were, plop them straight back down in there so that this is flush with the front. So yeah, there's really only one way that those can go into. So now I'll just take my case, and this is what, when you're putting this back in, you don't want these wires. This shaft is a access to this screw down here. So you just want to make sure you're not pinching any of those wires while this goes back down into place. And the best way to know that you did that is to shine a light and make sure you didn't pinch any wires. You can see that screw down there. So that's all back on nice and tight everywhere. There's no gaps or anything, so I know I'm not pinching any wires. I'm just gonna screw it back on. There we go. Let's flip this cup back over, and I'm gonna just shut this door, and I'll do some test bends. I'll do some test bends on this guy. Yesterday the cup wouldn't even home because that plunger was sticking out, and it would try to go up a shelf and it was just hitting it. And so Now, first things first. Oh, first things first, plug the fuse back in so we have power. There we are, fuse just poking out here. Oh. Okay. Now we'll just wash the cup home and see it's moving around with no problem. It's gonna find a home on that magnet. Okay, come on cup, find home on that magnet. Oh, there you go. Home. Hook swipe. And it's gonna go back home. No problem, right? Okay, good deal. So 9 times out of 10, or even 10 times out of 10, that's the number one part that goes bad in these things. If it's going up and it can't find the product, or if it's going up to the product and nothing's happening, and then it's like trying to deliver an empty cup or just going back home with nothing, or if it went and got a product and you show up and there's product in the cup and it like couldn't deliver it, open up that door and see if that plunger's sticking out. Right now I'll show you how to run a plunger test. Okay, so you just open the door, push your little mode button right there, and you get, it'll say cash counters. 2 and 8 are scrolling through the menu. This is enter, this is back. So I'm gonna just sit here and push 2 until we get to test modes. I'm gonna push enter, and it's gonna say test vend, test selection switches, calibrate, test diagnostics, test display. I think test diagnostics is what we want. And then we're gonna go through to cup test. Okay, as soon as I push enter right here, the plunger, I'm gonna hold on to that button. As soon as I push enter, the plunger's gonna do a test. And that's how it delivers this product, right? And after like 10 seconds, it's gonna go back in. And there you go. So basically yesterday when I was running that cup test, I showed up and the cup wouldn't move. It was struggling to move left or right or up or anything, and it was just freaking out. And I opened the door and the plunger was sticking out just a bit. And I ran the cup test and the plunger spun, but it failed to go back in. And that's just a bad plunger motor. And so changing the plunger motor, when these are done, I throw them in the garbage. Never keep them, because you might be tempted to think a year later that one might be good and you'll go put it in another machine. So this is now garbage. But knowing how to change a plunger motor will save you that $100 repair visit. And yeah, it's a good, it's an easy thing to replace. The only other thing that's really, see, look, here's a bunch of old, I'm doing what I say don't do. Here's a bunch of old plunger motors. These are all the failed plunger motors from this machine down in there. I should throw them away. But the only other thing that really goes bad, and I've made a video about this too, is that if it can't deliver the product, or it's constantly saying remove product from here, it's going to be these springs, a spring here and a spring here, and one of those will pop off and then the door won't shut all the way, and then that just screws everything up. So that door needs to shut all the way. And those are the two. If you own an RVV500, knowing how to change a plunger motor and change those springs out are really the only 2 things you ever really have to know to own this machine.